Well, we want to welcome you all as others are joining our group and begin, as we like to, uh, calling upon God's presence and going over some of the basic ground rules regarding what we're doing and why we're doing it and all that good stuff. What happens now regarding your journey with managing and expressing your sexuality and improving your personal development is in your hands. It is how you interact with and listen to God as you engage in this experience that determines who you'll become. Our aim is to deepen your relationship with your personal development coach, God. Our time together is not meant to replace the essential connections you need to cultivate within your community. Everyone needs a place where they can be free to be themselves, be fully honest in order to receive feedback and support. You need a support group, and this isn't it. We are here instead to enrich your relationships by offering insights about God and life that may inspire you to break free from ambivalence, encourage you to pursue new personal challenges, and enhance your interactions with those around you while aligning with God's intention for your life. This is more than just an informational podcast. For knowledge not grounded in human experience won't lead us to change. Our podcast is designed to be interactive, as true change requires us to acknowledge our need for growth, develop new habits, and take the risk of sharing our unique journey. During this time, you will hear from us and others alternative solutions for you to consider with things that you struggle with. But it is up to you to decide what is helpful and consistent with God's will for you. The nature of our interactions doesn't allow for a truly therapeutic encounter. So what you receive needs to be viewed like the Bereans. You need to check God's word out to see what if what we're saying is true. Let's seek God together as we begin by praying this prayer together, found in Psalm 139, 23, and 24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. So it's an honor to welcome you as part of our time together. And as it states, some of what you may share either through the chat as far as a question or as a comment will somewhat guide our time together. And it's my privilege and honor to introduce Nate Larkin, who wrote a very interesting book with a very fascinating title. Okay, that you have to read the book to understand the title, and it makes complete sense. Samson and the Pirate Monk. So, Nate, welcome. And then we also have Micah here. And I've been blessed to have Mike in my life as a Timothy that I've been praying for a while. And Micah also is both a therapist himself as well as part of our ministry called Servants Oasis, which is designed to help um, those of us who follow God become a little sharper in how God works in our life in a way that strengthens those around us. So, welcome everybody, and Nate, why don't you start us off with something brilliant or just be Nate?
Well, I'd like to start out the discussion if we don't have a plan. Uh, I, I, I'm on a bit of a quest right now. to understand a little bit better my own craziness, and to maybe adjust my perspective on recovery. So this is how it happened for me. I had to take another freaking game off my phone. I don't know if anybody else has gotten addicted to games on your phone, but this is the third one I've had to take off. Last year, I got some just time killing game that involved moving colored balls around. And, and, and then became obsessed with the game, and I'd play it late at night. And I'm losing productive time. And finally, the only solution was to get rid of it. And then a couple of months passed, maybe 3, 4, 5 months. I don't know how long. And then I found this game moving wooden blocks around on a puzzle. And it was frustrating, but also rewarding when you could figure it out. But it was, and before you know it, I'm the whole world is in my head, is wooden blocks. And even when I'm not playing the game, I'm thinking about the game. And finally, I had to take the daggone game off my phone. Well, I'm the oldest of 10 kids. My siblings, a lot of my siblings play this game called Wordle, and they've been playing it for a couple of years. And I've never played it, a word game, Wordle. But a couple of weeks ago, I thought, well, what the heck? And I played the Wordle and figured it out and helped this sense of accomplishment. Now, I played it on the New York Times site. They do one Wordle a day. But then I discovered you can download the Wordle app and get an endless supply of these puzzles. And before you know it, I'm hooked on Wordle. And I'm playing it 2 or 3 hours a day. I'm staying up late at night. And now I'm starting to think in, I can't stop thinking about 5-letter words. It's nuts. I finally had to take the stupid game off my phone. And it started to bother me. Why? Here's the question. Why is it so when it comes to something that's not good for me, it's easy to start and hard to quit.
Mm.
But if something is good for me, it's hard to start and easy to quit. Is there something about the game? Now, and I'm struck by the fact that very often in recovery, we talk about doing the work of recovery. That really is kind of the language. That's the way it's phrased. Are you doing the work? Here's a secret. I don't like work. I do go to the gym every day, but I walk right past that weight room where guys are in there working out. I've gone in there a few times, but I get bored so fast. I just can't stick to it. I'm not interested in working out. So I go down to the basketball court, and I can shoot baskets for 45 minutes and keep my heart rate up. It's wonderful exercise. It maintains my concentration. It's a little addictive. Try to improve my shooting percentage. I can do that day after day after day. So the question I'm asking myself now is, and I've noticed this about myself in recovery. I remember early on in recovery, the one thing that struck me when I walked into my first 12-step meeting was I was surprised by all the laughter in the room. I really was. I've gotten really serious about recovery, but it started to feel like I've moved from being sober to being somber. Did I get too damn serious? Is there a way for me to more gamify my recovery? Am I missing? Could this be more fun than I'm making it? And would that be a key to making my recovery even more resilient? I don't have a lot of answers to the questions yet. I'm starting to study. I've got a book on game theory. I'm trying to understand what the architects of these games have figured out, because they've figured out how to make these things addictive. It's true of the game architects. It's true of the people behind social media. It's true of the people who design all the games of chance in Vegas. They figured out how to keep us engaged. And I've only hit upon a few of the fundamentals so far. But I think one of the key ones is even the most popular and most addictive video games, you're failing more than 50% of the time. But failure is never fatal. You can learn from every failure, and then there's a way to get another life, and then there are other things that you can do to power up, to extend your life in the game, you know, and at any rate. I'll stop it there. I don't have a lot of at this point. I have far more. I'm highly curious. I'd love to hear what anybody else might think instinctively about their own addiction, or how making it more enjoyable, less work, more rewarding, less fatal. How can we apply these principles, whatever they are, to our
Hey,
own
before
recovery?
we came on here, you kind of asked me if we could get together in the next week and we could play, $2.50 per basketball shot. And I think the answer to that is no. I'm not playing you in basketball
Yeah.
because I think not only are you addicted to basketball, you're also kind of setting me up for a deal here on the money that I kind of resent. So appreciate you sharing that story
Yeah.
because it probably saved me some money. But it is to me it's a very. And then when you were talking, I went, and not to sidestep this
Mhm.
because I think what you said is really interesting. Um, but then you look at pornography and then you go, whatever we discover with what you come up with the game theory, etc.,
Mhm.
what are the pornographers
Yeah.
or other aspects of addiction tapping into?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the blocks harm you.
Yeah.
Okay. The block game harms you.
Yes.
But when the other stuff taps into that, um, self destruction becomes more clear. Like the blocks eat away at your spiritual relationship with God, but it doesn't feel as direct of an assault.
Mhm.
Okay. Where then some of the other stuff, it seems way more direct and more quickly we have to ante up our soul to
Yeah.
play in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know, certainly, pornography is highly addictive. I can testify to that. And I have been caught in this, gone on porn binges in my day, especially with the advent of internet porn. Just, and I'm thinking that part of it might be one of the things that's introduced, and one of the things that makes online internet pornography so very, very destructive, by the way, is that there's so much novelty, right? There is an endless supply of virtual sex partners, uh, that you can always, well, that one, maybe that one, but maybe the next one's better, or maybe the next one's better, or maybe the next one's better. I've been searching for the perfect woman for, you know, but and that, by the way, one of the things about that makes basketball engaging when I'm shooting, no two shots are exactly the same. I rebound the ball and shoot from where I pick it up, and then I rebound the ball and shoot from where I pick it up. And there's enough variation, there's enough novelty that it can maintain my interest. What's deadly about the way pornography works on us is that after a while, we become conditioned to novelty as part of our arousal template. So now, in order to be aroused, I need this endless parade of images. I can't, well, that's terrible. What that means is I can be married to the most beautiful woman in the world, and I feel as though God bless me with a beautiful woman. But she's one woman. And if my brain becomes conditioned to novelty, then then I am especially vulnerable to it makes faithfulness and actually just the appreciation of this beautiful relationship much more difficult because my brain is always looking for something else.
Does anybody want to comment on this? Is a great place to start. What you're feeling or thinking, as you hear him talk about how our humanness, our minds work, and how they can kind of get lost into some things that eventually take up our time and almost substitute for real living.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, eventually we exchange real living, um, which with Nate, what you said is when I walk into a room of recovery where there's real living, and another way to say it, there is laughter.
Mm-hmm.
There is laughter. And yet somehow we replace real living with something that becomes vital to us, but it's not real living.
Mm.
Any comments? Anybody want to say anything?
Yeah, we've got a hand raised by one of our guests, Larry. Larry, feel free to chime in as you'd like.
It's a question and a comment. Early in my recovery, God, maybe it's been 8 years ago. Uh, I know it was my Silas, or I'm in another program too, but it might have been my Silas. He said, "You are so damned analytical." I did quantitative risk management for years, a lot of math and stuff, and you got to get out of your left brain. Is there anything on your right brain? And I ended up starting. I used to have some cooking training, and when I was coming up with menus and stuff for my catering little business I had on the side, I couldn't use my left brain because I had to experience what my audience, what my customers experience. So my question is, and then it was, tell me about the sunset you saw. Tell me about a child smile. Go for a 3-minute walk. And now I find out using that with my sponsees, I
Mm-hmm.
say beauty. So can you talk about how beauty interrupts this uh, hamster brain, whatever you want to call it?
Mm.
That would be helpful.
Mm. 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 Uh, I love the fact, Larry, that you brought up the left hemisphere, right hemisphere dichotomy of the brain, and the fact that we have these two hemispheres that actually think in two different ways and at two different speeds. And the fascinating thing is that the character is what I do before I even think about doing it. It's this instinctive response. That's who I really am. Character is actually formed. So we're told by Jim Wilder, who, by the way, I'm going to interview tomorrow on the Pirate Monk podcast. And it's actually formed in the right hemisphere through attachment. And it's that right hemisphere that has this global view. It's the right hemisphere that's artistic and that can appreciate beauty, and that it's not so narrowly focused on trying to come to a solution that it doesn't miss the forest for the trees. That right hemisphere, yeah. So I think we can. I've tried to think my way to sobriety. That was my initial approach. I thought coming into recovery that I simply had an information problem. And if I can just get all the proper information and then I can think my way to sanity, I can, my addict is alive and well in that right hemisphere. Those responses, I'm making bad decisions before I'm aware I've even made them, right? But what I avoided in early recovery was I avoided attachment. I avoided connecting with the group. I avoided community. I tried to do this solo, think my way to sobriety all by myself. Turns out, no, no, no. Real change, real healing comes in connection, attachment, and through experience. It's highly emotional. It's multidimensional. it can't be quantified to some kind of a sobriety equation. It's bigger, broader, and more beautiful than that. Is that kind of what you were driving at, Larry?
Or what was driving me? Yeah.
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 I wrote down a couple of things when you were talking earlier, Nate, and one of them is what would be in your mind if you weren't playing the game?
Yeah.
And I think that a defense that is a common defense is obsessiveness.
Mm-hmm.
That if we can fill our brain with something that is endlessly obsessive, detail upon detail, it gives us the false sense that we're in control. Most things have been figured out, but I think it's more immediate reward is whatever God is wanting to bring to the surface that we are working hard for God not to bring to the surface
Mm-hmm.
is a lot easier to avoid.
Yeah.
And so I believe that a lot of males in particular are very frightened of the emotional world.
Yeah.
And so if we can keep busy thinking, okay, or you even, and I'm not against it since I'm a Penn State fan and tomorrow my life is on the line, and an Eagles fan and Sunday my life is on the line, you know. But so I appreciate sports, but I also believe there's times I can kind of take almost anything good and make it bad
Mm-hmm.
by overly obsessing on it so that I can not listen to God. Okay. And what I mean by not listen to God is when you're talking, I'm thinking about be still and know.
Mm-hmm.
Be still and know. And we keep going to know means I have to step towards something and do something to
Mm-hmm.
kind of engage in something. All right. And God says, if you're walking with me and aware of my presence, if you're still, I'll be in charge of the knowing. The
Mm-hmm.
Holy Spirit within you will bring to you what you have to look at. And a lot of times, if we're honest, we say, God, I don't want to know what you want me to know.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right. I don't want to come and get in touch with how I question myself regarding my value.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't want to remember that relationship that troubles me and confuses me. So I just as soon not think about it. And all the other kinds of things we do to obsessively make sure that we don't be still and know.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that I'm sure you've noticed this when Allie and I go out to eat on rare occasions these days. Look around at other couples in the restaurant. It's amazing how many of them uh, they're each on their phone. They're at the same table, but they're not at all connecting. Um, and the, so I can use this. I can use my obsession with a game to avoid my encounter with God, or to even just be alone so that He can speak to me. I can also use it as a way to avoid other people and avoid connection. One thing I am picking up just on my earliest beginnings of study about gameplay, though, is that it seems as though games actually can be highly therapeutic if they involve collaborative play, cooperative play, interacting with other people cooperating with other people toward a common goal actually seems to have highly beneficial effects. I really wanted to recover on my own. I'm going to do this by independent study. Just give me a workbook and give me some time and let me go off by myself and figure it out. No, the growth that I've experienced in recovery and when there's been those big, massive shifts, haven't been when I'm sitting alone. It's been in walks with other people, in conversations with other people. I think we do this together when we learn how to when when we learn how to play team ball. Really, we get out of this ridiculous endless game of one-on-one against a superior opponent, that ancient adversary of ours who's only lost that game once, right, in an epic one-on-one battle in the desert after he was baptized. The rest of us, not so much. He knows that game, and he'd love to get us in isolation to play that game. So I don't think we can gamify recovery without making it a team sport. But because the gates of hell cannot prevail against the church.
And to me, to put words to it, words to emotion. So the cooperation requires some kind of word or sharing.
Yes,
like if two guys are shooting some guy who's the enemy, well, that might be fun, but if we're not talking about what's going on inside of us, while that cooperative thing is going, it's not going to bring us closer in a way that matters.
Right. Yeah.
Nate, your mention of the gamifying recovery was really interesting, because the first thought I had, I was like, oh crap, how can that be used well? But then when you mentioned the togetherness as a part of it, I was like, okay, I can see that working. But the first thing I thought of was, most of the people recovering from any sort of addiction are already met with the struggle of a dopamine addiction as well, like a biochemical imbalance that's a part of that process. And so I was like, if we're going to meet this with gamifying the recovery process, are we just meeting them with another dopamine addiction?
No.
But I think what you said with the aspects and importance of community in that process, almost it doesn't isolate them through that process. Again, it almost encourages them to seek support through that process and learn how to relearn some of the things that they took before. I just found it very interesting. It's not something I've thought of before.
Yeah. And we have to have dopamine in order to be motivated to do anything, right?
Yeah.
It's these massive doses of dopamine that come to us, for example, through pornography with supernormal stimulation. Nobody was meant to have that avalanche of dopamine. It can be delivered by that much sexual stimulation. But we do need dopamine in order to be motivated to do anything. So how can I build a healthy layer of dopamine that doesn't blow out my adrenals, right? That makes me excited to get up in the morning and continue on this road of recovery. And in my experience, brotherhood is a powerful motivator.
Mm.
Can anybody does anybody have the courage out there to just tell us, what if you were quiet, would God be telling you that you want to run from?
Oh yeah.
Is there anybody out there that could say, when I'm quiet, I think about this, and then I become emotionally shook up about what I wish I wouldn't have done, or I wish I wouldn't have experienced? Because to me, when I looked at the game, one of the things I said, when you look at what we're filling our minds up with, there's usually some lies attached to it. Like, for instance, I can put $5 in a one-arm bandit, get $1 back because I've got a cherry on the side there that clicks down, and then and it says you're a winner.
Mhm.
You're a winner. Okay. And we buy that if we get all these blocks right or whatever the game is, we're a winner. Okay. Well, I'm telling you, if I give you $5, you give me $1 back, and you tell me I'm a winner, you're lying to me. Okay. If you give me $6, okay, you're telling me the truth.
Mhm.
Okay. But that four in the middle there, that's a lie. Even if I break even, okay, it's a lie. And so, a lot of what our minds get drawn into, I mean, they literally, when they invited some of the learning behavior research that created this, there was a big discussion among the people that invented how the mind could be manipulated through obsessiveness in this regard. And there was discussion of whether or not they actually let the world know of this discovery, because they saw already what it would do from a gambling perspective
Mhm.
in the negative, because they figured out we can call you a winner
Mhm.
and take $4, and you may believe it, or if I get that game done more quickly, somehow my self definition becomes a part of it. And we slowly let others manipulate our own self-definition, and we cooperate almost with disappearing ourselves, because I lose myself over time into something that basically starts to erase who I am. Where when you look at recovery, laughter, people are being able to own their essence, both the good and the bad of it.
Mhm.
There's something healing about being able to say, this is the evil I struggle with,
Mhm.
versus being pretending this isn't evil,
Mhm.
because we know we have a savior we can bring this evil to. But the cost of bringing it to the savior is to be able to say it is evil.
Mhm.
And yet, if we run from the emotional feelings of the trauma and some of the trauma we've caused ourselves, we never are able to be able to have that level of honesty which is necessary to start the pathway out of it.
Mhm.
I see two hands up. Sam, Larry, what are your guys' thoughts? Zach as well. What are your thoughts?
I'll jump in. I appreciate I appreciate the topic of the gaming, because I am currently in the deep of a game that I just started a little while ago, and noticing how much time I'm using in my life for it. But it is, I think if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but the question was, what do we fear that God's going to tell us, or what are we trying to ignore? And there is definitely, I've been divorced for a few years now, and but there's part of me that wants to be reconnected with my ex-wife, and I think you know there is a chance that it could happen, but I have a lot of fear of not not how do I say it, just failing. I mean, I guess that kind of sums it up, is trying and failing, and realizing it, like the effort wasn't worth it, or the effort hurt too much to have put into it. And Nate, you were saying about the gameplay. You can die in a game, well, you get a life again. You can fail and keep going, and there is definitely something to that of just you know I guess the game that I'm playing right now, you have, it's not a run in there and shoot people. It's you have to think about what you're going to do, and so I'm able to think my way through something and accomplish something. Well, I can't do that. I wasn't able to do that in my relationship with my ex-wife. Was to be able to think, if I say this or if I do this, it should work out. It didn't work like that, and so having to, it's just easier to gravitate towards something that I know that I can accomplish, even if it is really useless in my life, like a video game. It's just easier to gravitate towards that and feel accomplishment than to be willing to put myself out there for something that I really don't have any control over, in the end. So I guess that's what I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And I don't know if Sam, if you'd be willing to answer this, but as you were talking, you said failure in a global sense of failure, and I find myself wondering if you had to break down the word of failure into more specifics, okay? Because the minute you say the blob, failure, okay, I wouldn't want to face a blob bigger than me either, you know. But to me, if failure is we tried and the commitment wasn't there anymore, or or we had a similar fight that when we had in the past, if there's a way to break that down, to me, it may be helpful, and we might be able to help you more, because I'm about to be married for 50 years. And we fight. And we're remarkably different. And we have good times, but never at the cost of a bad time. We have the ability to go there at a moment's notice, should either one of us so desire to make the other person miserable. We know exactly how to do it. We love Jesus, but we don't always act like him. And so to me, to figure out how can I go back and re-engage in a way that I don't end up feeling like a failure, no matter what the end result is of how it turns out. Partially because, okay, when I sin tomorrow, and I'm not planning on it, but I guarantee you I will, okay, in some deep form, does that make God a failure? God who loves me, forgives me, offers me empowerment. God can do everything right. Sam could do everything right in this experiment. Not that we're going to, because we're not God. And yet, the bumps and the bruises of the journey on the way to whatever failure isn't is going to guarantee occur. So how do I figure out, like the game, when Sam plays the game, Sam goes, I'm pretty smart. And if I take my time and I think of all of the angles, and I'm defensiveness and paranoid enough to do that. Okay. That I can make the right decision with the game. And then I can win. And yet, in that relationship with not just her, but anybody, we can't figure it out. There's no relationship in as we grow in the area of intimacy where we handle it perfectly and don't periodically end up a little confused. What's going on here? What's going on here? Because the game is concrete. There's a finite something, and if I play the game right, I can control that outcome. Those blocks fit. The right color balls went exactly quickly where they needed to go. And yet God is a God of relationships, and God didn't create us to have as one fellow, the left brain. He gave us a left and a right brain. And he didn't give us just thoughts. He ordained us to feel. You know, is joy a thought or is joy more a feeling? Is the gentleness, the kindness, are they thoughts? You know, or is Nate, who I see as gentle myself, other than on himself, okay, right? That's the least place where we're able to do that most of the time. It's how I feel in relating to Nate's gentleness and how I feel relating to Nate's kindness when I see the fruit of the spirit in a brother. It's not just a thinking, but it's a thought. So I don't know, Sam, or if anybody else, but to me, it's like, let's look at failure and 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 you know consider it all joy. Now I sometimes think God's a little psychotic, but consider it all joy when I put you in a game where the rules aren't clear and you're likely to lose on the way of developing another capability within you I have ordained you to achieve. Consider it all joy when I help you set up the next failure. So that doesn't mean we are one when we fail, but it also means at times God doesn't view failure like we view failure. And sometimes he says, I want you to go into that cloud. And you go, well, it's hard to see in the fog. It's hard to see in the fog. And God goes, I know. So when you're in the fog, feel my hand in yours. That's why I want you in the fog. I want you in the fog to feel my hand. Not to get through the fog in an A+ way, but I want you to go into the fog, walk by faith, not by sight. Any comments or thoughts to anything there?
Zach, I noticed that it looked like you had some comments or questions to add to the conversation.
Yeah, I do. My brain is very analytical. I'm writing these things down, so I'll try to be quick. So basically, first for Nate, I agree on. It's kind of funny. I've been in the stage of my recovery. I'm very analytical, and you were talking about going to the gym and playing basketball and getting joy from there. And my question for you really is now, ever since I got into this analytical type of thinking, I've put away all my hobbies. Like it's really sad and pathetic. I'll meet an old coworker or a friend, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, how you been?" And And perfect example, I have a fishing buddy. He's like, hey, when's the last time you've been fishing? And since I joined Samson Society 5 months ago, all I've been doing is just researching porn. I mean, porn recovery, going to therapy. Like that's just been my life.
Yeah.
And so my question is, how do I kind of get that other side, that other hemisphere to work and have balance in my life and bring hobbies into it? And then to answer your question, Roy, when I'm quiet, I really thought about that last night. Actually, God just spoke to me. I was really deep, but the emotions that come to me that are coming, these are lies from Satan, and God's telling me the opposite, that it's not true. What Satan is telling me is when I'm quiet, I think about that I'm not good enough and I'm not seen. And like I said, I've been rejected all of my life, from all the way from high school through my military career to even a little bit into my marriage. And that the lie of I need porn for pleasure, I need it for pleasure. I'm not never going to get that sense of pleasure without watching pornography goes through my brain. So that's what I have on that. And I love what you said, Roy. That I wrote it down. It's probably one of the biggest key takes what you just said about God wants us to feel His hand through the fog. That's gonna absorb into my brain, and that's I needed to hear that tonight. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. So that's really all I got to say. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks.
Do you have something more there, Larry?
Just answering Roy's question. In the stillness, I'm afraid of my clutter, so I give up one addiction for another, and I have a small farm, so I have acres to spread it out on. And so it's instead of being quietly shameful like porn, it's openly. Someone comes here and they go, "Oh shit," and so I'm actually working with someone, and so it's interesting that Roy talks about consider all joy, and he talks about the cloud. Another life, I used to teach early church history, and there's a book called The Cloud of Unknowing, which is, gosh, I don't know, before the 14th century, 13th, 15th century. And then there's a verse in First Kings 8, I think, but the Bible guys will probably correct me, that says God said he would dwell in thick darkness. That's what it says. And so I'd like anyone to comment on the whole thing of feeling God's hand in that cloud or the thick darkness, loss of a child, tragedy, whatever it would be. That would be my wish.
I've been thinking a little about this. For some reason, a couple days ago, I was thinking about a very familiar passage of scripture where the Apostle Paul says, I have learned to be content in whatever situation I have found myself. In studying that passage in the past, I've always focused on the word content. And how do I cultivate, I need to be content. I need to be content. But what stuck out for me this time was the word learned. He learned to be content. Uh, contentment isn't something you can just necessarily decide to do and pivot, and now I'm a contented person. Contentment is something that we learn over time. And I think we can certainly see that in the life of Paul himself. If you look at Paul in his early life as this zealous persecutor of Christians, the guy who had externalized all evil, and he's out, on a campaign to, make the world right. I think he could be well described by that phrase that Bill W. used so beautifully in the Big Book when he described alcoholics as restless, irritable, and discontent. But over time, Paul learned to be content in whatever circumstance he found himself, and the only way he could learn that was to be in those circumstances and survive. There's that other passage of scripture that said that Jesus learned obedience through the things that he suffered. There is a lesson in the fog, in the darkness. Um, I can't learn to be content in an uncomfortable circumstance without being in the uncomfortable circumstance. And and it's then that I really need to feel uh, the hand of God on my shoulder, and I really, really at that point need to sense that I am not alone in this situation. This is where the brotherhood really, really kicks in for me.
Hey, let me, when you were talking, and I liked the way you approached that. Um, I thought of another potential ingredient that is has to be a part of the learning process. And that is when he puts us in these situations where we're not content, how do we learn to be content? Well, you and I naturally, if we look at even how we began this, the game, okay,
Mhm.
we believe we need that. So I'm
Right.
in a situation, and when I'm in a situation, I have a list of things that I think I need to get through that situation.
Yeah.
And are we learning contentment when we get that need met? Or do we learn contentment when that I need that? Here's an echo. I need it, I need it, I need it, I need it. And it never shows up
Mm-hmm.
what I needed. And I thought it was going to kill me because I needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of being content, content doesn't necessarily, in my mind, mean being passive, completely passive. Paul even uh, he learned to be content in whatever circumstance he was in, but he didn't. But he was on the move all the time. He had plans. I mean, he accomplished a great deal. It's not like he stopped accomplishing things when he surrendered his life to Christ. That's really when things took off for him. Um, but I think contentment has to do with being okay with what is today without feeling like I have to run from it or I have to do something to change it. Um, there's that motto, again, to go back to the alcoholics in AA. You've seen the bumper sticker, at least I have 1,000 times. This too shall pass. That's one thing I've had to learn in recovery. That no circumstance is permanent. That I can be content in it. I can relax first of all and accept that this is what is, and I can, if I'm going to move, I can move from that position of um, acceptance. It reminds me of the advice I once heard a couple of NA, Narcotics Anonymous guys give to each other. I overheard a conversation, and a guy was talking about, man, when that urge hits, and these guys were out on the West Coast, California, said, when that urge hits, man, because like the only way to get rid of it is to do it. It's just overwhelming. And the other guy going, hey, dude, you got to learn to surf the urge. He said it comes like waves, and there's always going to be waves. But no urge is going to last. I don't know where he got this number. He goes, no urge is going to last for more than 13 minutes. So if you can just surf the urge, just accept that it's there, just ride it, it's gonna peter out and you're gonna be fine. I loved that, and I actually have used that, although I'm not at all a surfer. But to be, but when that sense of, that when that uh, obsession hits, and I think I've got to run I've got to change it. I've got to do something. I've got to medicate. I've got to hide. I've got to do something. If I can just stay still and be content and maybe reach out to a brother, whatever, um, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. And I don't have to sacrifice my integrity or my peace of mind to escape this thing.
Well, I like the way you say surf the urge. So we'll have to periodically come up with a way for you to repeat that style of language. It's just very soothing, surf the urge. But when you were talking, I thought we don't like being controlled. I mean, maybe somebody here
Mhm.
desires to be controlled by others. Okay. I myself don't want to be controlled. And yet when you were talking about the urge, the way the urge is described, it's like I need that button to control me for some reason. I need that game to control me for some reason. I need that image of pornography to control me for some reason. And it's not like we would, when we hear it that way, we would never want to sign up to be controlled.
Right.
But yet, if we also look, and the guy's basically saying, let go of the surf, go right over top the urge for a while, and the urge doesn't have to take over your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's bring Micah into this and say, Micah, what are you thinking about and out there? And
Yeah, I've got about 8,000 notes I've been jotting down over here just because I've got a bunch of thoughts going on. And then I want to bring us to another question after I share a little bit. But I've got two main things I wanted to bring into the conversation because I think as part of addictions, we keep saying these different like quotes that stick with us, and one that was that stuck to me that I heard I think one time in a treatment team meeting that I had was that shame is the engine of addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and that as part of that shame comes a seemingly natural hypercriticalness that we have on ourselves, and we talked a little bit about that earlier. That unrelenting spirit, that unrelenting view of ourselves that says that we aren't going to ever be good enough and there's always going to be little things to work on that will continue to show that we are a failure. And one of the things that I can consistently will have conversations with people about is that in order to break some of those pieces, this isn't the case for everything, but in order to break some of those pieces, we have to focus on what we have control over. Because so much of that hypercriticalness can be based in the areas that we don't have control, that we're lacking control, and thus we're not going to change. And so some of the conversations I'll have is how can we focus on the areas we can truly change in order to have the best impact on our own recovery, instead of ruminating in those areas of this is what I'm experiencing and this is tough, and it certainly is. But that mindset, that rumination isn't getting us anywhere. It's the safe place that we sit in because it's comfortable. And until we're willing and we're ready to jump out of that and say, okay, the circumstances I may be in suck, but they're the circumstances I find myself in, that contentment, that acceptance. It was making me think, as you were saying that, Nate, I just kept hearing acceptance and commitment therapy because that's like the framework of that entire model.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to be content so that we can start making those changes.
Yeah.
And I think that contentment is the starting line. That acceptance is the starting line. But off of that, I want to push into one of our other questions that we have, and this was again from one of our guests. It's a two-part question, and I think those are Roy's favorite. So I'm excited to jump. I'm excited to jump into that. Here's the question that we've got. It says, "What steps can a single Christian man take to live a sexually holy and healthy lifestyle while living with the longing for relational and sexual intimacy? And then the second part is, what is the difference between normal sexual desires and the desires of a sinful nature? I'll say it again. I'll say it again.
As long as you don't look at me and you look at Nate.
I'll look
for
at
the
Nate.
definitive
Nate
answer.
might not be able to tell Nate. I am
Don't
looking
look
at you.
me just because we're here
Yeah.
close by each other. You look at Nate. He looks nice and comfortable where he is.
Nate, I'm peering into your eyes through the Zoom. Let me read the question again, and I'll just start
Or
with this.
Sam will answer it. Zach,
There we
somebody's
go.
got to answer
Yeah.
this now.
I like that. I like it. I'll start with the first part, then we'll jump to the second part. It says, what steps can a single Christian man take to live a sexually holy and healthy lifestyle while living with the longing for relational and sexual intimacy?
Yeah. I think the very first step, and I have not, I'm married the day I graduated from college, and Allie and I will soon celebrate 47 years. But there have been times, especially early in recovery after D-Day, when I might as well have been single when it came to sexual relations. Because I slept in a closet for a couple of years. And there have been long stretches of time when physical intimacy is completely off the table. And at other times, it's been off the table for other reasons. Allie's had some really serious health issues, just interrupted that part of our relationship. Actually, those seasons really turned out to be very good for me and very good for us. But the first hump I had to get over, and it's not one I really felt deprived if I wasn't having sex, because I had classified sex as a basic human need, as vital as certainly food and sleep, and to me and I would forego food and sleep for sex anyway, and more vital than air and water. And if I didn't have sex, I was going to die. And somehow, in my mind, it wasn't possible to live a fulfilled and contented and enjoyable life without sex. That was a story I was sold by a culture. And it is absolutely not true. I had to see it modeled in recovery for guys who had long stretches of sexual sobriety, when sobriety was defined as no sex with self or partners other than the spouse. Those would tell me that, those are they've been through the greatest years of my life. And during those times, here's what I found. During those times when sex was off the table, because I had defined intimacy solely in sexual terms, that's what I thought intimacy was. Intimacy was sex. Were you intimate with your wife? That only meant one thing. To learn that there is non-sexual intimacy, I began to experience intimacy in rooms where there were no women present, but we were being honest on an emotional level, and we connected. And now we're coming out of the shadows. I'm no longer alone. I'm feeling connected to people, and then bringing that experience home and starting to have those conversations with my wife, learning emotional intimacy, non-sexual intimacy, in those seasons when physical intimacy is on the table, only makes it sweeter. But to me, it's not life and death anymore. In our marriage, sex is not it's the frosting, not the cake. And we have such now, fortunately, such a deep connection that I don't feel deprived if sex is not available. And so but which does not mean that I do not experience sexual desire. If I've seen guys just torture themselves in recovery because they think, that temptation is sin. Jesus was tempted in all points like as we were, and yet without sin. So, no, temptation is just temptation, and desire is desire. And yes, I will still experience sexual desire, and I wish I could say it's all godly and all directed solely toward my wife. That's not true. However, um, I can be, as long as I stay conscious, cognizant, uh, don't blindly follow my desires, and instead focus on intimacy, whether I'm with my wife or whether I'm with brothers, wherever I'm in conversation, to make it's human connection and intimacy with God, which to me is the big frontier. Not talking about God, but talking with God, feeling that sense of connection, with true connection with a higher power. This mysterious spiritual heavenly Father who actually sees me, knows me, and has a deep affection for me. When I can feel that connection, that intimacy, that meets my need for connection. Actually, singleness, seasons of singleness, and for some people, singleness is a calling, and there are there are people who live fully, people who've been granted that gift, fully enjoyable, fulfilling, productive lives without sex. Our culture places such a value on sex, making it absolutely essential. That somehow we're being deprived if we're not having it. That's all, pardon my French, that's all bullshit. And I'm grateful to know that today. I'm grateful that for me, sex is optional. It's always optional. It actually helps my relationship with my wife that she knows I know that. Now she doesn't always look like I'm a predator and she's the prey. Anytime we're moving close to each other, I'm not swinging for the fences. She doesn't have to be defended, because for me, it's always optional. And I only learned that during what was, for all practical purposes, seasons of enforced singleness. So I'd say enjoy your single years and focus on cultivating emotional intimacy. And don't place unrealistic expectations on yourself. Don't live in condemnation because you still experience sexual desire. Temptation is not sin. And if you're red-blooded male, you're going to experience sexual desire.
Yeah, and to me, number one, to my knowledge, I don't know of maybe science proves me wrong, but no man ever explodes. Okay,
Yeah.
despite how what a man thinks he just no man has a oh sorry,
Yeah.
didn't take care of that. You're dead now. But the culture gets us to tune in to the immediacy of certain pleasures and certain needs, and
Yeah.
we start to buy it, and then when we buy that lie, and I think what Nate described is true, then the very next thing is we become a victim, because how can how much of a victim wrote that question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm a single guy, and I desire sex, and it's easy. And then once we move into I'm a victim of this, do you guys all hear it? Can you hear the music that starts to happen? Now, it's not violin music. Okay. When you start to say, I'm a victim because I'm a man, and we all know what men need.
Mm-hmm.
And here we start to go. And by the way, that's the pot where the rest of the excuses are eventually going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's where it begins. Okay.
Yeah.
And then here's the music. Okay. You deserve a break today. All right. That's that. So once we know the victim, and I'm a single man with this catastrophic urge,
Right.
okay, that Jesus maintained and dealt with without a sin.
Mhm.
And it's only a matter of time if I set up a certain way of thinking, which is the pot where excuses come from. We will hear the music. You deserve a break today.
Right.
Okay. And so to me, now I liked what Nate said, but I also want to underline one different word slightly, and that is the word love. Okay. You won't die or explode without sex. You are likely to die at least as a little baby
Mhm.
without love,
Yeah.
based on some of the things Nate said earlier about attachment and the
Mhm.
importance of how it fits into the brain and a wide variety of issues. In fact, there's a name for a baby that dies because the lack of care was so inconsistent, even though they were fed, etc., completely okay, because they weren't able to attach,
Mhm.
and they weren't able through that attachment to get the feedback loop necessary to start to feel that they can survive. And so to me, I go, okay, so if you're a single man and you interpret the scriptures as I do regarding sex outside of marriage isn't what God intended, okay, and by the nature of being single, that means you're not married, then what can you do? Okay. And what you can do is really focus on loving
Yeah.
the different ways to love others, to connect up with others, to contribute to other people's lives. And it is easier for you not to become a victim to your own sexuality when, in a proactive fashion, you step towards loving
Mm.
while at the same time not feeding the sexual desire beyond what's naturally there. Okay. Because if we continue to involve ourselves in things that up that level of sexual desire, you're going to need a break today more quickly.
Yeah.
And your ability to connect up and to love others and sublimate some of that stuff in a positive manner is going to be less likely to happen.
Mm.
I feel like a helpful summary, Roy, of your first point is that if we treat sex as a human right, then what that would insinuate is that when we are refused sex, that someone else is stamping on our freedom.
Yeah.
And that's just simply not true. If our freedom comes over the freedom of another person, then it's not freedom.
That's right. And also, there was a part of me when I was listening to Nate, uh, what I thought sharing eloquently, I found myself saying, if you have to have sex, is that sex with intimacy?
Hmm.
Isn't the
Oh.
minute you add the word have to or compulsion,
Yeah.
you concentrate on the drive versus the personal connection
Right.
connected to it.
Right.
And you immediately then, by depersonalizing it, probably up the drive and don't pay attention to the consequences of whatever you're about to do.
Right.
Because as you depersonalize it, along with depersonalizing it with your spouse, because you have to, the minute you depersonalize things, do you think you might have left God behind too? Because God is the person that created us as a person because he was personal in his essence. And when we depersonalize ourselves, we are automatically leaving his definition of us.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and during those dark years of active addiction, I had lots of sex, and I would just lonelier and lonelier and lonelier. And because I was emotionally unavailable, just emotionally shut down, even when I was being intimate with my wife, to say that we're being sad, she felt, she didn't feel loved. She felt used. She could have been anybody. It didn't bring us closer. Uh, and now, uh, yeah, yeah, now it's entirely different. Isn't it? One of my great regrets is during those years of active addiction, I spent an awful lot of money on bad sex. That really just because there was no attachment, there was no connection. And you give me the choice between connection and orgasm, I'll take connection. That orgasm is gone in a few seconds. And if when it's over, I'm still alone, that's not satisfying. It might feed the fuel for another dopamine hit, but that doesn't make me more content. It just makes me more discontent. Connection makes me content.
Yeah, and when the word I was thinking, Nate, when you're talking satisfaction, it's
Yeah.
not satisfying.
No.
It only not satisfying. And this is bizarre, but some of you guys, maybe hopefully once in a while, even in here, okay, what we're doing right now, but you've been in maybe a Samson Society group and you didn't want it to end.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want it to end. Or that human interaction between you, somebody you're sponsoring, maybe,
Yeah.
and you see the growth, and the growth in them leads you to growth within yourself. It's like I gave, but somehow God gave me back.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want it to end.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of sex, the way it's portrayed, it's seeking an end.
Mm-hmm.
It's somehow coming up with an end point. And I'd like to suggest that when you want to know what intimacy is, so that you can measure it in your own relationships with a female, remember the times in your group or with you and a buddy that you're talking about life in a very real, vulnerable way. And it's not like you're perfect. It's like you're able to share with each other where you're imperfect, but it's okay and you're understood and you
Yeah.
don't have to perform and you can be real. That intimacy with her beats the sex you have with her.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody want to comment on anything? We have about 12 more minutes, give or take, maybe 5 or 7, since I read this thing at the end that we always do. Is there anybody want to comment on anything that was said? If you had a takeaway and you thought, today I felt this way about myself or God, would you be willing to say, this is my takeaway for today?
Go ahead and jump in, Brian and Luke.
All right. Man, I mean, hearing from what Nate and Roy had to say, especially I would say a lot of my like takeaways, like especially for me, since I've been working on like freeing myself from, I've been recovering from pornography. I've been sober from it for almost like 50 days. And I mean, I still got a long way to go. It's like 3 years or even more for my whole life, but it's just like really that part about rethinking intimacy because I I think that with intimacy is equal to sex, and my mind has made sex basically like a basic need, but to realize that being intimate is not really about that. It's more deeper. And I've even remembered in high school, I used to run a cross country team, like there's a whole bunch of other guys. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was the best year of my life
Mm-hmm.
because we were not just running, we were literally talking, like laughing. And I remember like it was one of the most deepest things. I even literally even improved on like sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been now joining a group called Celebrate Recovery and also Samson Society. And just realizing that there really is a different type of, like I would say, intimacy that is really unique rather than watching a porn video or thinking that sex will fulfill me. And even realizing too that the I also have to be intimate with God. I need to also speak with him. That's something I haven't done for quite a long time because in my addiction, I never really talked to God. I was like, I put him on the back burner, never read my Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But after this, for like the 40 days, that's what I've been doing. I've been talking to him. I actually like literally speak to him. It makes me feel like there's like a person like listening. And that's basically like my key takeaway. And I'm just really thankful to hear this and be encouraged. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you for that gift to us. When you share your soul and your journey with us, it feels so holy and it feels so real. And if you continue like you are to just respond honestly before your maker in those kinds of upfront and personal conversations, man, keep up the good work. Because when I listen to you, I want to talk to God more too.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share as we move towards a conclusion? A takeaway that you thought about today, or a thought? Sometimes God might give you a thought that's just what we need as we move on through life. Larry?
Real quick. I thought of, I think it was Kurt Thompson that said, we come into this life looking for someone who's looking for us. And that feeling of knowing someone's understanding and listening
Mm.
and really seeing us, that emotional connection and intimacy is just amazing. And when we can experience it with all the humans, men and women, it's amazing. So thank you.
Mm.
Thanks for being a part of this, Larry, and sharing that. We often forget, well, actually over exaggerate our ability to run from the pursuit of our maker.
Mm-hmm.
He can't see me here.
Yeah.
Anybody else? And you can just break in if you don't show your picture, which is fine, and just say something that we can hear. Micah, anything before we move to our final reading, and then I'll ask Nate the same thing.
Yeah. No, I think I'm very content and leaving it off where they were able to leave us.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Sounds good. Nate?
Yeah. I like that we ended on love and we ended on connection and
Mm.
attachment. That's what we're all looking for, isn't it? It's what we're all looking for. And most of us have been sold some kind of a counterfeit and wasted some years chasing it. But this is what it is. This is the real thing. This is connection. Close us out there, Roy, will you?
All right, I surely will. And we had if you want to check out a book we just came out, All Men, in our LiveUp resources.com. One of our guys said not seen. Remember when he said not seen? Isn't it nice to know that God sees us and keeps pursuing us even between now and the next time we meet? For some of you, we do the same thing in a different way next week on the 15th. We will be, that's the week we talk about marriage. Women are part of that as well as men, and we discuss marriage. So you're welcome to check out that. Let's close. We need to wrap up our podcast for today. But the good news is Jesus continues to finish his good work within you. As he transforms you, you'll begin to see life's biggest challenges as holy moments, which we just experienced today. Acknowledging our sinful choices, emotional struggles, and relational difficulties is not an easy task. If we're still and we know who God is, things will bubble up in the emotional area of our lives that we'd like to beat into submission through some obsessive cognitive exercise. Today's holy moment prompted us to reflect closely on our responsibilities, allowing us to, as a group, seek God's strength for change. Please feel free to invite anyone you know who might benefit from this discussion and conversation next month. May God bless you with the strength to practice Ephesians 4:2 and 3 daily. Listen to this. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowances for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourself united in spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. Remember, God is quite the conversationalist. So talk and listen to God today. Appreciate your time. May God bless you as you continue to converse between now and the next time we meet with him.